Morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this amazingly warm and sunny day. One of the big questions that we are facing with our industry is we seem to be talking a lot about, B&I world, but the big white elephant in the room is our events industry. And how on earth are we going to come back from COVID? How are we going to restart that industry again? Because there's lots of us trying to work out how we can do events. Our business is very much focused on events, and whilst we've been holding these on a virtual Zoom perspective, and that's been great, a lot of us are missing personal interaction and missing the going to sporting events and going to actually engage in places where we can have these fantastic customer experiences and create great memories. I know, and it's great to have on the call today, people from London, but also from Scotland, because I appreciate we are all trying to work this out together, and these forums make a big difference for us sharing knowledge from different industries. So I wondered, for open discussion, what are you all doing? How is it working? What experiences have you experienced in the past couple of weeks? I know we've started venturing out as society back to restaurants, and some of those have been good or bad. I know friends who've tried to hold birthday parties from a socially distanced perspective and create events that way. Sort of how is that working? What are you experiencing, and what do you think the future holds for us? I know a lot of places are embracing technology to try and enable events better. What is going on? And Andrew, I know you were the first one when I alluded to this being a topic. You literally jumped hysterically at it, and I know it's a lot of your world is in this space, and I wondered if we start off with you. Some of the things that you're experiencing and some of your clients, what they're experiencing and how they're trying to innovate and carry on creating these great experiences.
Okay, so I think we've sat there with every single client waiting to see what would happen. And what's been discovered by the events industry is there are an awful lot of voices and an awful lot of almost factions and different associations who are all trying to scream as loud as they can to get noticed. They have been noticed, and obviously the dates have been given for October the 1st, which is for events over 30, or as they call them, or it seems to be called a mass gathering. So events can happen at the moment now, and there was a lot of lack of understanding because it was really unclear what could and couldn't be done. So hotels have been doing things, as have venues. However, the big issue is that the corporate is just not coming back. They're not coming back to the offices, and through duty of care, they're worried about putting their people together into a meeting environment. So this is presenting obviously a huge issue. So what all of the venues have gone down the route of is providing a COVID confident scenario, which is all very fine, but then the factions have all raised themselves up. So there's different accreditations from MIA through to ESSA and AEV and all sorts of different associations who do have different measurements, which doesn't make it easy for anybody. What we've seen happening is the ancillary supply chain, so the AV companies that perhaps would have put tech into a museum to sort of bring the event to life, they've now pivoted completely, and they're putting green screens into their warehouses and actually creating some really cool TV studios to encourage people to come in, to encourage the corporate to come in. The savvier venues are saying, okay, we have one entrance, so you're not, whereas in the past the big equity was to go to a big museum and be seen to be spending, to be able to get hold of it, and you could turn it around within 45 minutes and wow, we had this amazing event. that's really off the agenda now, because potentially 2,000-3,000 people will have gone through it before. And again, it just raises the corporate sort of issue with, we want to use an untouched venue, or, you know, as low touch point as possible. So there's loads of different scenarios going on. There's a lot of confidence out there, and a lot of, I think it's bravado saying, oh, the event market will be back. But the reality is the corporates just, as you can see from the city, they're just not coming back. I was on a call with the head of events, global events for BP, and he basically said all they will do is that they will reduce their events right down. They'll do exclusive use, and Zoom and all this tech has proved that you can do things online. They sponsor, I think it's the Ryder Cup, and he said they wouldn't be sending people to it because the duty of care started as soon as they sent the invite. How the guests got there, they don't know what's going to happen on the plane, on the taxi, or anything like that. So they're just very nervous about the whole sort of chain that goes with it. So lots for you all to think about there.
Yeah, absolutely. That duty of care is, I saw Ramesh nodding there quite vigorously, that is a massive issue. Ramesh, talking about, you know, businesses coming back to the city and corporates with events. I know solicitors, we do occasionally like a good event and meetings. How are you looking at that?
Well, it's supposed to be our 150th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And then we lined up for being a mega city sort of shipping law firm with arranged events on Cutty South, etc. And I think that's all on hold. And so I think we're not going to be doing anything this year. We're not even sure when we're going to go back to the offices. So I think everything is on hold until, say, February, March, as far as we're concerned, and then see whether we can twist that and say it's 151st year rather than 150th year. It's very difficult, because I think the news this week, and people talk about a second wave. I think it's more like a resurgence of the first wave, and a lot of the different things happening. And I think they are. I can understand what's happening in the Northwest, because I think there's Eid celebrations over the weekend, and they just don't want people to get together, which is why they've made no announcement on Leicester as such. And I think in terms of all my colleagues, I mean, we got into this routine of working from home and trying to garner business and do the best we can. And certainly, I think even in terms of family gatherings, people are being careful. So to talk about events is just not on our horizon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right, Andrew, with, you know, there being often mixed advice, mixed guidance. It's very hard to know exactly what you can and can't do, which doesn't make it any easier. Stefan, is that what you at Brewer and Dolphin are also experiencing? Are you looking to innovate when it comes to events, or are you just...
Yes, we have. First of all, can I apologize to everybody for my outfit? I just said earlier on, I just came out from the gym, so apology. Anyway, yes, we have. So we took the decision to cancel everything right almost from the beginning, not knowing really what was coming, and to be more proactive towards our clients. You know, in wealth management, financial planning, entertainment, clients entertainment is pretty big and very important around networking and all the rest. So everything was cancelled and remained cancelled until the end of February 2021. And the reason we went that far is because the first quarter of the year, we usually don't really do any entertainment, because it's winter and it's not really the best time to do it. But we've looked at Christmas, of course, which is very important, and decided to remain with cancelling all the events we have, and we normally do big events, very large events. So we're concentrating on things which are maybe not so innovative, but works at the moment, which we do. We've started doing lots of webinar with our clients. We get some amazing guest speaker And we've only started that, but it has created a lot of interest from our clients. The last one we did was with someone really great, and we had about 800 clients joining in, which works very well. We also have started some time ago to do some live cooking demonstration and wine tasting, which again worked really well. You know, you still touch your clients. They're free to join or not join, and it's usually lots of great fun. And we've done different models, some which are more personal with just few people, and some of us with lots of people. And that worked pretty well. And then another thing that we've decided to do around Christmas, because it's of course very important to everyone, is I'm going to be using all my chefs as of September, because we kind of reopening, and few people will be able to go to the office, and we're going to be baking about 10,000 Christmas pudding. And make a whole story around that, because, well, of course, it's going to require quite a lot of product and all. And then in December, we'll be sending Christmas pudding, homemade Christmas pudding from our own chef. And we're going to create a little story, you know, with a little video and, you know, saying, you know, this is what we've done during lockdown and blah, blah, blah. Because one thing that we're very proud of also, we didn't furlough anyone. As a firm, we didn't get rid of anybody. So it's important to show that we've done that and share this story with our clients and say, hey, look, we've used, you know, even people who normally should not be really working, which is hospitality people. We've actually kept them and make them work for you. So that's the sort of initiative we do. But yeah, it's very sad to know that, you know, events is not going to return for quite some time.
Oh, that sounds amazing. No, I absolutely agree. And it feels like there is this slight disconnect, you know, because we've got, like you say, webinars, and you're reaching, and I know for us as a company as well, we've reached a far wider audience that we may have reached when we were sitting in a small conference room in a hotel somewhere. And so our message and our content, and like you say, the great speakers, we've been able to engage in a far wider space. And that puts a bit of pressure, I think, on the events industry to force that to find solutions to open that up quicker, because we have got this other great alternative. And like you say, you're innovating around the technology to embrace both the physical with wine tasting. I hope you send people wine that they can taste with you, which sounds like a great idea. But you're able to embrace the physical event with the technology side of it, not just, you know, one and only. So that might be putting pressure on the events industry to come back quicker. I don't know, Ramesh, are you embracing anything with that type of sending wine around?
Not really.
Great idea.
No, I know. I've always been confused about Christmas parties as well. I'm sorry, I may be in a minority here where most organizations I've worked with, we've advocated the idea of an annual party, and we've done at the beginning of the year, towards the end of January, because then January is a quiet month, nothing much happening. We get better value for money, and it's a good way to look forward to the year. I think Christmas parties, as we all know, bring lots of difficulties and dangers. But so I'm not fussed. I see that as from our perspective, and having different offices everywhere and different things happening, whether there's a Chinese New Year party, etc. And we got to be very careful on various sensitivities within the office as well. But I think there are some great events that people do in terms. I like the idea of doing a cooking demo and bringing some clients in, and whether it's designed just for a few people. In our office, they do a virtual drinking session every Friday between 5 and 7. I'm not sure what goes on, but they talk about the drinks they drink, and to me, I think I just cannot drink on my own, so it's a total loss for me.
Well, in theory, you're not on your own if you're surrounded by this screen.
I know, but then I think we talked elsewhere that what actually is hospitality, and if you can't do the real mixing and everything else, then it's a question of saying, are we just doing it for the sake of doing it, to be seen to be doing something? And unless as Stefan's doing, obviously, if you can get 800 people, I mean, that speaks volumes. Hi. By the way, Stefan, I'd like to put.
Oh, we lost you.
I'd like to order 2 puddings for Christmas.
Listen, when we produce 10,000, you know, there'll be no problem. There'll be a couple of spare for you with great pleasure. I'll deliver it myself.
And this is being recorded, Stefan, so, and he's a solicitor, so you're in trouble. But Vicky, I'll pull you in before we move on, because there's a definite feeling that sort of business events and sporting events are 2 totally different beasts. And you are from a business event. Again, we touched on hospitality. It's all about how we make people feel. And there's a lot of worry at the moment about how we can best serve and make people feel. You had a great experience, which I know surprised you and delighted at the same time.
Yes, just yesterday, in fact. And now it's on a completely different scale. There were only 10 people involved, including myself. So, you know, not exactly what you call a large event. But I was very surprised to be asked by a client to run a branding workshop yesterday. And we were actually on the Sunborn yacht near Excel, so near what is or was the Nightingale. So very odd first experience of going back into London. I drove in and found it not too much of a problem, but the yacht they'd done a really good job. It was their very first public event of any description since lockdown. They had a complete one-way system in. All the reception staff was behind screens, but very welcoming. As soon as they came out, they put masks on. Behind the screens, they didn't. Sanitizing stations everywhere. The room was perfectly set out with social distancing, lots and lots of messaging all over the place. Coffee stations were beautifully put together and all with compostable cups. You all had your own bottles of water and glasses. When it came to the lunchtime break, there were hot meals but served within China within bento boxes. So you simply picked up your own bento box. You had your own sealed cutlery, tables of 2, no more than that, all well spaced. And I have to say, having been very trepidatious in the morning, driving into London, parking, going in, it really ceased to be an issue. The people in the room all behaved well in terms of staying within a sensible distance of each other. And actually, after about the first half hour, we completely forgot that there was anything out of the ordinary. Actually just got on a very, very good meeting and a very good day. So that was a really positive experience. And that, as I say, was their first event. And I hope that they'll go on to run more like that, because it was very successful. And I think we would have struggled to achieve because it was all brainstorming and workshopping yesterday. And I think we would have struggled to achieve that over Zoom. It's not impossible, but it was a lot easier to see people face to face, and they really enjoyed the day. Just one other thing I was thinking about, which is completely different, and this is there was a country living fair which was due to be held at Sudeley Castle, and normally it's one of these things like Countryfile Live or whatever else, where you have vast quantities of people going around and stalls and shops and all sorts of different things. And to my surprise, this one at Sudeley was actually going ahead, so far as I'm aware, and we didn't go, but they were advertising it. All on time tickets, all on controlled flow of people. So rather than having the booths pushed right next to each other, they were separated with a sensible gap in between each of these completely self-contained gazebos. And then the flow of people going around was one way and on time tickets with limited numbers, careful parking. I don't know how it worked. I don't know how it actually went, because it's obviously not the same as when you can go to just a big market or whatever else, but well done to them for trying and for continuing to share an experience that a lot of people would have missed otherwise.
Oh, absolutely. And I suppose it's fair to say that your experience at the Sunborn has kind of given you a bit more confidence about that, well, the events arena in general.
Completely. And it's looking again at the innovation of colleagues, the way that they do things, the way that things do become possible, has very much made me think about how you might take a smaller model and almost replicate it within a larger venue. So although it would be very difficult to have lots and lots and lots of people self-isolated within a big space, maybe there's a way of doing modular sections within a larger venue. I don't know. I mean, obviously the challenge is if the corporates don't want to come back, which I do understand. These clients of mine have been working right the way through. So for them, it was sort of no big deal because they're already used to it. And I think that's the thing, as we've mentioned before, it's getting confidence back. It's proving to people that actually it is possible to do it safely within certain guidelines.
And I suppose the more we do it, the more we learn, and the better it goes.
Exactly that.
And I suppose also being quite smart about it, with it being sort of time sensitive, that makes a lot of sense. You're still able to get a good flow through of people who can have a good experience in their own time, rather than worrying about, you know, everyone being everywhere, which isn't ideal.
Yes, exactly.
And I might be wrong, but I feel that there's a big difference, like I say, between the business side of things when and events, and then the sporting side of things. I know, Gary, you've been putting some great stuff on the chat, and if I can bring you in from a sporting side of things, it looks like there's a lot going on.
Oh yes, I've just sent Chris a contact for John Sharkey. It might be worth touching base with John. He's been quite vocal for the industry. Certainly, as I reported before everybody came on, the Aberdeen new conference and banqueting sector exhibition centre has started to make redundancies. Certainly, there's no movement down here in Glasgow. But as I reported in the chat, the first major event with 5,000 people is going on today at Goodwood. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And lastly, as I reported, one of the participants from snooker pulled out because he was quite conscious. He was asthmatic and he wasn't happy with attendees being in the crucible. So it's a very mixed message. However, there's a friend of mine runs a big corporate hotel in Newcastle who did the Northern Golf Championships last week. Very successful. The major concern was the medics, not the actual players. The medics were very, as would be imagined, very conscious about keeping people separate, not contaminating or allowing people to form in groups anywhere. But it was a successful week for them. And similarly, interestingly, he was also reporting, together with probably 2 or 3 other general managers of the larger conference banqueting, Q4 of 21 looks as though that's going to be quite busy. There's inquiries starting to come in for Q4. Then yesterday I was speaking to one of my colleagues in Aberdeen, who has a fairly large function room, talking about Christmas. Now, prior to lockdown, she had a fair amount, I mean, probably 4,000 bookings, paid deposits for Christmas. And of course, the next concern that she has is when or if people start asking for their money back because they're not going to carry on with Christmas bookings. So it's a very mixed picture out there.
Yeah, absolutely, and that doesn't really help at all. And I suppose when we are looking at sporting events, and I know from Cheltenham, when the Cheltenham races went ahead, with the government talking about localized lockdowns, is putting that additional pressure on people organising events to make sure that they do it so well, because failing to do that could really impact on businesses and local communities with localized lockdowns again. So not ideal, and especially needing more guidance on that. Gary, lovely to see you. I know you're an avid football fan and have got a lot of connections still in that space. What are you seeing? I think you're on mute. Yes, you are.
Hiya.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's. I mean, obviously we recruit for the event sector as well. So, I mean, yeah, I attend a lot of sports events and football matches. Funny enough, Tottenham Hotspur have contacted me for my season ticket, and they want me to pay a percentage of my season ticket by Wednesday of next week. But they're expecting. They've said that for the first couple of months of the season, they think 20 to 25% within the ground on fans. So there'll be a balance between fans coming back in. So there's that side. In addition, obviously we recruit for the events market. I mean, I work with a few of the really big event companies like Smart Group. Smart Group had they've cut their team down to the absolute bare minimum. They do the big events. They've got Battersea Evolution, which seats up to 2,000 people a time. Now, Battersea were, really from sort of September this year right through to January, sort of 20,000 covers over that period. So they've completely shut everything down, and Smart aren't expecting to do events until early next year now. So it's a different picture right across the spectrum. Speaking to a lot of the events clients, you know, they've been really hard hit, especially on the hotel side as well. Yeah, none of us know when it's going to come back. Will there be this second wave? I do think that from the start of the second quarter of next year, there are a lot of, you know, Royal Ascot, etc. They're all starting to look and they're all starting to market out stuff for next year. I do think next year will be a busy year. You know, they've moved the Olympics, they've moved the European Championships, some of which are going to be in the UK. You know, I think we've got to write off the rest of this year and focus from second quarter of, you know, start of the second quarter of next year. I think second, if again it depends on the virus, second, third, and final quarters of 2021 going into 2022 should see a big bounce back.
Yeah, and we're all hoping so. Damien, you also, if I can bring you in, Damien from Firsty, you're also having very sort of active conversations in this space and have got some good feedback from some of the stadia who are looking forward to, you know, getting back to normal.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we're working with a couple of stadiums at the moment with regards to providing a solution for the hospitality. And more externally as well, with the retail catering side of things. But it's, I mean, I've for my sins, I'm a Plymouth Argyle fan, so I've just renewed my season. I've just renewed.
Harry's not happy.
There's more people on the pitch than in the stands.
Yeah. And we've just renewed I've just renewed mine and my son's season ticket, and again, I think we've got about 6,000, 7,000 season tickets, and you don't know even if that much is going to be allowed into the stadium. I mean, we got a capacity of about 18,500, and what they're going to do is if the actual minimum is less than the amount of season tickets, then they're going to do it by the time you phoned in to renew your season ticket to let you in for the first bit, I believe, on there. But yeah, no, we're working. It's quite exciting times for us because people are looking, not just with stadium, but at other events as well. People are looking to see what we can do for them with regards to festivals, and things like that, where people will be able to order without talking to people in certain situations. So it is very exciting, that side for us, but also at the same time for the events industry itself. It's very frustrating for them not knowing what they can and can't do at the moment.
And the conversations you've been having with Stadia, how are they innovating from a hospitality perspective? Because I know we have friends and family in sort of places like Wembley and the Olympic Park, and a lot of them can't open anywhere because they can't socially distance, not even in the boxes. So how are they looking at the hospitality side of things?
I think from the conversations I've been having, the hospitality side for, say, the sponsors, etc., would be treated to obviously the social distancing side of things, to the amount they can cater for there. But retail catering, I don't know even if that's going to be available to the actual fan, the fans that aren't within the hospitality side, the general fans. And so it's a case of, do they look for mobile caterers externally around the stadium or something like that? So it's then looking for a solution, what we can do to make it contactless as well from that point of view.
It is interesting that you know, people are actively looking at festivals again. I know that, you know, places like, I think Malta has already got festivals lined up for later in this year. So I appreciate different strokes. A lot of British people are jumping on a plane to go over, but it doesn't help that there's you know, so much confusion and not clear guidelines when it comes to all of this at all.
Absolutely.
The hotel space, I suppose, has also been severely hit and having to be reimagined. Carl, nice to see you. I wonder if I can bring you in on this. you're a new person, so I'm sorry you get thrown in as well. How are you experiencing things, and how are you innovating?
Hello, Lauren. Good morning, Chris and everybody. Well, the first thing I would just say, I don't know if you're just picking up on the football conversation there. They're actually doing some research at the moment about football fans, especially, who are singing, and what how stuff gets thrown out when people are singing around, to try and establish what the outflow is, so they can work out the mist effect, if you like, of chanting. It's more so in football than it is in rugby and cricket, but they are looking at that. And I know, for example, at the Oval, they've recently had a cricket match, I think, with only 1,000 people in about a 20,000 ground. So there's all kinds of research going on right now at the moment. From our point of view, so I work for HFTP partly. We run the largest hospitality technology show in the world, which would normally have been in June, and it would have been in San Antonio in Texas. We took the decision in about, let me just think, April time, having cancelled High Tech Europe in Mallorca, to then move High Tech from June to October and combine it with our other event, which is called our annual convention. So combined attendance between the two of those events is about 7,500 to 8,000 people, all in hospitality, all in hospitality vendors like Damien and the like, in all kinds of areas. And then we took the decision only 3 weeks ago, having looked at all the platforms, to go for the October event, to go completely and 100% online. Now, this is in Texas, where there is a little bit of a hot spot for CV19 at the moment. So San Antonio became a problem. The whole flights, everybody who would normally attend High Tech would 99% would arrive by airline, one way or the other. In America, the conferences book up a lot earlier because people have to book. So in Europe, the booking pattern for any event, as I'm sure Chris will know, is pretty much a hockey stick and comes up at the last week or 10 days before it. In the States, they're much more used to big conferences and conventions, to use the American phrase, and therefore the pattern is much more gradual. Trying to get my arm going in the right direction on the screen. And it's very interesting to see how this works. So we've gone 100% online. It's been very interesting to see how technology for online events has developed even in the last 3 or 4 weeks. There's things like Hop-In, You Go Virtual. We're using something called Tech Event. They've all got a slightly different impact. But the interesting thing that we've decided to do is, although we're holding the event for 3 days, which includes keynote speakers, education program, and actual exhibition space, where there is an exhibition space, if you like, virtual, where you can go in and have a look at what an exhibitor does and all that kind of thing. But we're actually we're doing it live for the 3 or 4 days, but actually we're going to leave it live for a month afterwards. Because the thing about events, and even all of us sat here, we probably don't want to be on this call for much more than an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I don't know if those of you who attended hospitality tomorrow, but I don't know about you, but I was on and I was off and I was on and I was off. I couldn't handle Zoom for a whole day constantly. Is that they've got used to Zoom, so they're happy with Zoom or the equivalent, and there are a lot of equivalents out there. And they don't mind dropping back in later and coming and looking at the recordings. And so we are going to leave it live for a month, and the whole exhibition live for a month. And the great thing with that is it suddenly brings, it's going to be in the States, it'll be on US time, but suddenly it means, international people can attend, although it may be in the middle of the night or late in the afternoon for us, but people are interested, still wanting to attend events. We ran, there's the whole thing about webinars, but similar to what Chris has got going on here, we ran something called Hangouts, where we had an hour's event, and we did a European Hangout, which was for some reason much more successful than the American version, at 3 o'clock every Wednesday. And we had over 1,200 people over 10 weeks, all individually. We had 200 or 300 people, where you can just hang out for an hour. And I think people's approach to eventing, if that is a word, not sure if it is, in terms of how they attend and whether they'll attend, is a whole different ballgame now. And I think the age groups will also take a difference. In terms of younger people who potentially believe they're not going to get it are probably going to be out there much quicker than older people with conditions such as asthma and things, as was mentioned earlier. So therefore, there is going to, and I think this is going to be for the hotel industry as well. This is, you know, for the customers, this is going to be a whole different thing. And I think it was to Vicky's comment about attending events. I think that you're going to have to, for live events, you're going to have contactless. I think it was on, I can't remember which email I saw it on, the list of things that the UK legislation expects for events to do, such as queuing, virtual ticketing, timing, and all those kinds of things. And I think the trouble with a lot of these conditions is they add cost to running an event. And I think we're all going to have to get used to, I hate the phrase, but new normal, whatever new normal will be, before we drift back to what we're used to. And I think, I mean, I was thinking, I was coming along earlier, I was thinking, well, you know, there must have been a time in hotels and inns where you didn't even have hot water. Now we've got used to hot water. When you used to pay for a per unit phone call, and now you don't ever use the hotel phone except to maybe order room service. Now we've got technology like Damien's and things like that. Well, I think eventually we will get used to going to events and doing them differently. But I think people will want to get out there. And I think the UK is due an explosion of staycation, people wanting to stay in the UK and go on holiday. And I think events, football is, I think it's going to be very interesting because of the virtual, the outpouring, if I can put it like that. I've not had my Man United season ticket renewal come through yet, but it's interesting to see my next door neighbour who's a QPR supporter, he's had his. And I think it's interesting how there appears to be no standard of all the football clubs. You'd think all the Premier clubs and all the champions would do the same thing. I must say I'm a member of Surrey Cricket Club, primarily because I want to go and watch Test cricket. Their communication has almost been too much. It's been almost telling me every day and everything, but I think cricket is an all-day thing, and it's a different approach again. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how things come up. And I worry about the live event industry going into the winter if a second wave or something, whatever a second wave looks like, comes up, because it's going to be confined, there's going to be travel, trains and all that stuff. And I do worry about our industry for probably 12 months. And I think it was Gary was talking about second quarter of 2021. And I think hotels won't return until 2022. And I think the event industry, which is very important to the hotel industry as well, I'll be very interested to see what the hotel catering show do for next year. I know the same group, Montgomery, have cancelled independent hotel show already in October. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of all that. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble, but
no, you make a lot of valid points. Chris raised a hand.
Well, no, I'm just interested both for Carl and Gary. So football, you think will restart successfully in October?
No, I don't.
Gary?
Sorry, Gary, you're on mute.
As I said, I mean, Tottenham Hotspur have contacted us. They're hassling us for our season ticket.
We need the money to buy players. That's why.
Yeah. We've got until next Wednesday to renew. Interestingly enough, though, they have said they're not going to be issuing season tickets anymore. Everything will be done on a phone. Now, if you work that out, if you're a season ticket holder, I mean, there's 16 of us in our group. We swap tickets between us. The clubs are now in control of you swapping tickets in future, or if you're a season ticket holder, you know, giving it on to someone else, taking a client. You won't be able to do that now. It's going to be very interesting. The Tottenham Hotspur have also put out an amnesty to their season ticket holders, and Arsenal have done the same. So a lot of season ticket holders, when they've handed down season tickets from father to son, etc., and haven't informed the clubs. There's talk that over 40% of the Arsenal season ticket holders are dead because they've handed down tickets for a number of years. So Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal have both put out an amnesty to their fans to say who is on this ticket, what are the names. So I received mine the other day. I've got 2 season tickets. one of which is in another name. So we're looking to change things, but that will take control back to the clubs to ensure that they know who's going in. They're saying it's all because of COVID, but really it's because of they want to know who's coming in, and also ensuring if you do sell a ticket on, the money goes to the club. You have to sell the ticket back to the club so they can sell it on, and they then take a percentage. I am a little bit more optimistic though about things coming back. I don't know. I think, I mean, I don't know if you're aware that Wembley have got the Charity Shield at the end of August. They're talking about having 20,000 at that match. So they're already looking into that. But interesting what Carl said about the chant. Do you know, I knew that because I'm guessing football, it is very much a chant game, and there would be that, that mist, etc. Very, very interesting.
I had a chat yesterday with an ex-colleague, and they were saying that there's technology coming out where you can virtually participate in a football game. So you and your friends in a pod can get exclusive content with sort of chats with an injured player, or hear the refs' conversations, all that sort of stuff that you would when you were at the game potentially. But just have it in this virtual experience that you curate or you pay additional money for to get. So I suppose looking at that sort of balance between the technology side and trying to bring it all back. Andrew, you raised and you're on mute.
Unmute. I just wanted to sort of pick up. I think the outdoor market is an absolutely huge opportunity, not just because it's the summer, but I think it's a lot of people are looking at it in ways that they can innovate, and rather than being B2B, because we know that the corporates are nervous, and I'm just thinking particularly about the Christmas party market, and there's one of the big operators that's in talks with Deliveroo to actually deliver Christmas parties to people's houses, so they would get the boxed meal and everything like that. So corporates still can celebrate or be seen to be celebrating or rewarding people, but it's getting it into people's homes. So really the touch points, the positives are...
Andrew, is that going to work? And is that going to have the impact?
It's not going to have the impact, but it's one way of doing things. The market will come back, but at the moment, everybody is sat there and they're not going to be stifled by business just not being there, so that everyone is looking to innovate at how they can do things. The corporate hospitality market is going to suffer, but how else can you do it? And if it is through ref tech and those kind of things that you can listen to in the house, then the operators will look at ways of doing it, because we've got to innovate.
Yeah, isn't it also about the staff though? It's also about, corporates and companies looking after their staff and trying to still create that bond with their staff and that engagement with their staff. I know it's not going to be the same experience, but it is we still care about you. Let's try and, do something together to keep that culture, to keep that engagement. It's not ideal, but it's
exactly. It's not ideal, but it's something that's better than nothing, and at least it keeps employees engaged. But I think, if you look at the summer market and how loads of the the Blenheim Palace is a really good example. What they've done with drive-in cinema, Goodwood have done it as well. They've partnered with Secret Cinema, so that's now down there. So, these places have really switched it up a bit, and they're getting amazing sales through the door just by, really using the outdoor space. And you can sit in your car and do something different. 2 years ago,
I think that's the interesting thing, because I do think people want to get back to having some activity and getting back to normal if they can. It's just how that's done. And during the winter months, that's a bit interesting. I understand it during the summer months, and I think there's been some great things going on. It'll be interesting to see how it happens during the winter months. Because I do think people do want to start taking a bit of risk and doing things again.
I wonder if I can bring Carrie in. Oh, sorry, Andrew, you're not done.
No, I'm done.
I'm sorry, I wanted to bring Carrie Ann in quickly, because Carrie Ann is up in Scotland, and it's always interesting to hear viewpoints from there, because you are a couple of weeks behind us. How are you experiencing things? You're heading up events for one of the councils up there. What's going on?
Hi there. Yes, so I don't know a lot of people in this call, but my name's Carrie Ann. I'm the events manager with Argyll and Bute Council, and I manage a venue in Hillsborough in Scotland. And our public events this summer have all been postponed and cancelled to next year, which I think even we're looking at Christmas and what we can do. I think our bigger events are all postponed. But I'm carefully optimistic that some of our smaller events might be able to start back soon. So we, for instance, do weddings, we do smaller bookings, and yeah, like I said, carefully optimistic that we might be able to start back doing these before our bigger public events. Yes, outdoor events are great, but in Scotland, that's not always, you know, ideal situation. Oh, sorry, I've got another call there. I'm trying to do this on my phone because our work laptops don't allow Zoom calls, unfortunately. But yeah, so outdoor events, maybe we can do some markets when we can start back. The guidance yesterday was nothing before the 14th of September. So obviously down south, you guys are able to start doing some things, but we're not yet. But hopefully that will change soon. Yeah, so we're focusing more on private events at the time, and I'm hoping that that will be able to start back. Hopefully Christmas, but who knows? We're waiting to see. We're waiting to see.
Are you looking at your event spaces and trying to innovate those spaces and see what else they can be used for? Because that's very much been a conversation in industry. You've got this great space. What else can we do in it?
Yes, so our outdoor space is fantastic. We've got views over the waterfront, so we can use that for a range of different things. Indoor space, I mean, yes, we're still going to be restricted to potentially social distancing. How are we going to work around that? That is my big question I have, is how are we going to utilise these spaces? Because we have a usual setup, but that's going to have to completely change moving forward. And then what else can we use it for? So we have a lot of questions at the moment. We're not that involved with technology and online events. I think that's great for some sectors, but for us, not really, because we deal more in private events and yeah, a couple of public events, but not as many. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, my question to the group would be is, if we are starting back events, how are we going to manage social distancing? Are we putting restrictions in place, or is a lot of that, does the responsibility fall into the public, that we would require them to take responsibility over that? Yeah, for me, that is a really interesting point as well.
Absolutely. Oh, Damien, yes.
Yeah, on that control, I saw an interesting video the other day where it was an illegal rave under a flyover, but it was a very well organised illegal rave in respect that they had like 2 metre boxes, and everyone that attended was in a 2 metre box doing their own thing. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Oh, fair enough, because everyone's innovating. You're allowed 2 metre boxes, Carrie Ann.
Yeah, I've seen that, to be honest, in some nightclubs as well. They've had like a chair and people are sitting like 2 meters apart on chairs, and I'm like, well, that's not quite the experience people want, I think, but it's something. It's a start. And as Gary King mentioned earlier, I think next year is going to be a busy year for us. I think a lot has been postponed. I'm just hoping that the market won't be oversaturated and people will have too much choice or too much going on, and that attendance might drop as well. But here's hoping.
Absolutely. Paula, I wonder if I can bring you in. You're quiet today. You've been out and about, had any experiences you can share?
Yes, I've been out and about in terms of restaurants. I suppose listening, it feels quite similar to what hospitality has been through. So I suppose in lockdown, when they weren't open, all of the operators found quite innovative ways to still deliver, I suppose, some experience to their customers. And I wonder, in terms of the things I've heard today, it feels like in the event space, what's happening currently is people obviously being creative, innovating, using technology to try and at least keep up that connectivity and engagement, you know, obviously with varying levels of success. I did love the bits from Stefan with the, you know, things that do actually involve participation, because I mean, you know, you do sometimes get a little bit zoomed out. I'm not sure how much that sort of recreates a sort of event if you were there in person. But being able to have something that actually allows people to participate is really an interesting concept, where I suppose if you were recreating an event and a pack was sent to that person that allowed them to interact in a very sort of personal way with that, that might be quite interesting. So I think it'll be interesting to see how people do innovate, but certainly can't imagine that, you know, events are going to be coming back in any way sort of this, you know, this year really, in terms of certainly corporate, or, you know, I think people obviously are quite nervous about I suppose big sort of gatherings, if you like. So yeah, I mean, you know, like I say, I think that what's happened in hospitality, there's been some really great examples, certainly, you know, in terms of how people have adapted, and I think there are equally good ones in terms of people bringing smaller groups together. We've got one in just in Boston Spa, and it's a very small sort of company that they do workshops really. Oasis, the School of Human Relationships, and they did a video which was really great, and it just showed you, if you were coming to an event of theirs, how it would work from coming in, and things like the compostable cups, things like, you know, your lunch would be you could bring your own, but equally there would be an individual picnic, like a box, so that you didn't obviously have the same sort of buffet thing. So I thought it was quite interesting how they'd created that, and it was really well done, and I suppose it just instilled that level of confidence that you would feel happy to go there and know what you were doing.
That's a huge point you make about communication. So I think to Vicky's point, maybe if it was communicated ahead about exactly how safe it was, or all the measures they'd put in place, then you would have more confidence. You would know exactly what you're doing, and you wouldn't be worrying about what you'd see when you got there, which is a massive piece that I suppose we have to take. And it sounds like we're definitely looking the future being part tech, part personal, and it's going to be a bit of a melting pot of the two, which could be quite an interesting place to be. And I think we'll see a lot of, you know, great innovation in that space. Gosh, and what we said the other day, we've moved 5 years in speed from a tech perspective in the last sort of 3 months. So I think we've got a far way to go, but watch the space. I'm very mindful of time, but I'm so grateful to you all to you know, sharing your thoughts and being here this morning. Please go out and enjoy the sunshine. It's you can hold your own event in the sunshine today, outdoors. So enjoy that. And thank you as always for being part of our discussions. Really appreciate your input. Stay well. We'll see you soon, this time next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye.